Once upon a time, in a kingdom far away, there lived a humble miller and his beautiful daughter. The miller, unfortunately, had a terrible habit. He loved to boast, and he was an exceptionally good liar. One day, this bad habit got him into very serious trouble. While standing before the powerful king, the miller puffed out his chest and foolishly bragged, "Your Majesty, my daughter is so incredibly talented she can spin ordinary straw into shimmering, beautiful gold." The king, who was known throughout the land for his obsession with wealth, heard this, and his eyes lit up with greed. He didn't waste a second. He immediately commanded his guards to bring the miller's daughter to the castle. Without a word of explanation, he led her down a long, dark corridor to a large, cold room. The room was filled from floor to ceiling with bale after bale of yellow straw. In the center of the room sat an old spinning wheel. The king handed her the wheel and then walked to the heavy oak door. With a click, he locked it from the outside. "Spin all of this straw into gold by the time the sun rises," the king declared, his voice as cold and demanding as a winter wind. "If you fail, you will pay with your life." The door slammed shut, and the poor girl was left all alone. She sat down on a dusty stool and began to weep. She knew spinning straw into gold was absolutely, completely impossible. Her father's foolish lie was going to cost her everything. Just as she had given up all hope, the door to the room creaked open. A tiny, strange-looking man, no bigger than a kitchen chair, hopped into the room. He had beady little eyes that darted around and a ridiculously long beard that nearly touched the floor. He skipped around her in a circle and asked in a squeaky voice, "Good evening, young maiden. Why do you weep so?" Alas, she sobbed, explaining her terrible predicament. "I must spin all this straw into gold by morning, and I do not know how." The little man grinned, showing a mouthful of sharp teeth. "What will you give me if I do it for you?" he asked. The girl, desperate for any chance to live, quickly took off the only piece of jewelry she owned, a fine necklace her mother had given her, and handed it to him. The little man snatched the necklace and sat down at the spinning wheel. With a flick of his wrist, the wheel began to turn. Whir, whir, whir. In what felt like an instant, the straw on the bobbin was magically transformed into glittering golden thread. The little man worked through the night without stopping. By the time the first rays of morning light streamed through the window, the entire room was piled high with magnificent gold. The little man took the necklace, gave a little bow, and vanished as mysteriously as he had appeared. When the king arrived, his eyes nearly popped out of his head. He had never seen so much gold in his entire life. He ran his hands through it, letting it trickle through his fingers. But all this wealth didn't satisfy him. It only made his greed grow stronger. He led the frightened girl to an even larger room filled with even more straw. "Do it again," he ordered, his voice even harsher than before. "If you succeed this time, I will spare your life. But if you fail, you die." Once again, the girl was left alone, crying in despair. And just like before, the little man appeared. This time, the girl gave him her most precious ring. And just like before, the little man sat at the spinning wheel, and by morning the room was overflowing with spun gold. He took the ring and disappeared. On the third night, the king led her to the largest room in the entire castle, a grand hall filled to the rafters with straw. But this time he made her a new promise. "If you succeed one last time," he said, his eyes gleaming, "you shall become my queen." When the little man returned, the girl was frantic. She had nothing left to offer him. The little man's grin widened, becoming a sinister smile. He leaned in close and demanded a new, terrifying price. "Promise me," he whispered, "when you are queen, your firstborn child will be mine." The girl was terrified. The thought of giving away her own child was unbearable, but she knew the king would not hesitate to carry out his threat. With no other choice, she whispered, "I promise." The little man got to work, and for a final time he spun an entire room full of straw into pure, shimmering gold. The king was overjoyed. He kept his word and married the miller's daughter, and just like that, she became the queen. A year later, the queen gave birth to a beautiful baby. She was so happy, so filled with love for her new child, that she completely forgot about the strange little man and the terrible promise she had made. But her happiness was not to last. One day, while rocking her baby in the nursery, the door burst open. The little man stood there, his eyes sparkling with malice. "I have come for what you promised." He shrieked, "Give me your child." The queen cried and pleaded. She offered him all the jewels in the royal treasury, all the riches in the kingdom. But the little man refused the wealth. He only wanted the child. Seeing her immense grief, however, he seemed to take a small bit of pity on her. He offered one last impossible bargain. "I will let you keep the child if, within 3 days, you can guess my name." The queen was desperate. She immediately sent messengers to every corner of the kingdom to collect every name imaginable, from the most common to the most obscure. On the first day, the little man appeared. She guessed all the names she had gathered. "Is your name Caspar Melchior?" To each one, the little man just laughed and shook his head, saying, "That is not my name." On the second day, she tried again with a new list, but with the same result. By the third morning, the queen was frantic with worry. Just then, her most trusted messenger returned, exhausted and out of breath. He said he had been riding deep in the woods when he saw a tiny man dancing wildly around a blazing fire, singing a strange, gleeful song to himself. "Today I bake, tomorrow brew, and next I'll have the young queen's child. For little dreams my royal foe that my name is Rumpelstiltskin." When the little man returned that evening, he looked smug and confident. "Well, my queen, time is up. Have you given up?" The queen, holding her baby tightly, took a deep breath and smiled. She asked innocently, "Is your name Conrad?" "No," he cackled. "Is it Henry?" "No," he shouted. She paused and then looked him right in the eye. "Is your name? Is it Rumpelstiltskin?" The little man let out a scream so loud the windows in the castle rattled. "A witch told you that." "A witch told you that," he shrieked. In his uncontrollable rage, he stomped his foot so furiously that he drove his entire leg deep into the stone floor. When he tried to pull it out, he tore himself completely in two, and with a puff of smoke, he vanished forever. The queen and her child were finally safe. She never again forgot the importance of keeping a promise. And she certainly never, ever forgot the strange and terrible name of Rumpelstiltskin. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe for more tales from long ago.